All right, welcome to another episode of Remote Voices. We are on season 2 now. This is like episode 16 slash episode 2. We have an amazing guest with us today. Greg, tell the friends and family out there in the Twitterverse and the live streams what you do, what your company is. Give us some background.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for inviting me into to this chat. So I'm currently the CEO of a productivity startup. I'm a recovering attorney. Spent the first couple years of my career practicing big law, and have kind of gravitated to early stage investing and found something that I was really passionate about. At Loop, we're looking to solve information overload. So if you've ever had the problem where you're searching through all of your 35 different productivity apps that you use, looking for a document or a conversation that you've had with somebody, and you can't find it, or you're going into a meeting and you just don't know where the deliverables for that meeting are. So Loop changes the dynamic of that because we bring all of your different apps into one centralized location without actually moving the information. And then we overlay on top of that, on top of your Google and your Dropbox and your Slack and your Microsoft and your Asana, etc., machine learning and AI on top of it so that we can prioritize it and show you prioritized and organized contextually so that you'll never miss a thing.
That's awesome. What made you leave the corporate life and go build a startup, which is long nights and sometimes no money? What was the triggering decision there?
Well, first of all, you should just call it corporate. Take the word life out of it.
Oh, okay.
And as an associate in big law firm in New York City, you are kind of tethered to whoever is slightly senior to you that wants you to do whatever stupid errand that they feel like having you do at that moment. So it's a little bit rough. The draw of being able to build something and sink or swim on your own really was pretty compelling. And the last thing was that I did a stint at a family office, and we were doing some early stage technology, and this came across my desk, and it was just too good an opportunity to really do something disruptive and make an impact.
Wow, that's awesome. It's a good starter story for sure. Well, let's dive into our first tweet here. So if you follow tech at all, you probably saw the amazing, intense, insane, probably one of the largest consumer hacks we've ever seen. Greg, I assume you saw the Twitter hack that happened this week.
Yes, I did.
Did you? How early did you see it? Did you hear about it, or were you just on Twitter when it was happening?
I wasn't on Twitter. I mean, naturally, I was one of the accounts being hacked by Bill Gates. No, just joking about that. But yeah, I mean, I heard about it. Probably not too long after it started.
Yeah, we were. I think Jordan. Was it Jordan? Did you send the first tweet?
Yeah, because I saw Elon tweeted it. I was like, "There's no way this is real." And then the other one started rolling in, and we had this moment of like, "Holy shit!" Like Twitter's literally getting hacked right now.
Well, at first it was
crazy.
like the accounts are getting hacked, right? And then Emilio runs into my office and goes, "Dude, did you see that if you send Bitcoin to Kanye West, that he'll send money back? Are you going to do it?" And I'm like, "Oh no." First off, you're the person that falls for it. But secondly, this is bigger than just Bill Gates or whoever. I think Elon was the first person you sent. But what I think is pretty crazy about this and worth mentioning is there's a couple of things that are a bit of a deep dive outside of the cybersecurity side of it. One of which is employee and company culture. The thing that kind of came out of this that I think is interesting is that it was an internal tool that was being used to basically tweet from these accounts. And they haven't said yet, they called it social engineering, but the kind of quote unquote underlying message is somebody got turned or somebody got pissed off. There was an employee that either got bribed or there was an employee that didn't mind screwing somebody over because they were upset. Greg, how do you guys think about company culture, keeping these things close to your chest and not worrying about a potential employee completely destroying all goodwill all in one fell swoop?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question, especially given what we do in terms of our users trust us to show them the content from their underlying platform. So show them their email content and their files, etc. And privacy is a massive issue for us. And like any other company in our position, we have access to user accounts completely encrypted, and we've taken serious precautions that a single pissed off employee really can't get to them. However, that's our greatest fear. I mean, because that's the way you shut down a product in record time. And so the scary part here is that it's one thing for an account to be hacked, but now the idea that people are seeing, there's just absolutely no control over on social media of people's accounts. So
well, there's no stop gaps, right? Like
Right.
the thing that was brought up that I thought was very interesting is someone said, it's very interesting that no one used President Trump's account, because that clearly would have been the largest reaching account. So there's a question of like, does the president have like special controls? Do they have special security measures in control of his account? Which I think the answer should be yes. I hope so. But also it brings up into question like, oh my God, what would have happened if they had tweeted like, we're nuking Iran from Trump's account?
Well, that's what I think Matt Mazzio actually tweeted this, and he had a really good point in that, like, we're lucky that you say only, but like basically like 100K or just over 100K. Literally, a war could have been started, or like the stock market could have been influenced. Like there could have just been way more drastic.
Yeah. Somebody else had said they could have sold the access for more than they made in the scam.
Right. So I guess in a sense, like if you're trying to be optimistic here, that it's lucky that a massive vulnerability was exposed for only 100K instead of like at the cost of like a world war or affecting economies or things like that.
My question here is like, what would have happened if we weren't during COVID? Because I know for a fact that Twitter is completely remote. Would this have happened if everybody was still in the office? I don't know either way. That's what I was thinking about when I saw this news. Wonder how much this has to affect the future of
cybersecurity, remote. Yeah, Greg, are you guys a fully remote company?
We are fully remote.
What do you do in that case in terms of like security and cybersec and things like that?
Well, I mean, all of our, all of the access is really encrypted and locked down. And I'm trying to think if a developer could really get in. It's not really possible for a developer. One of our developers, I mean, only two people, our CTO and our senior developer, have keys, and even so, everything there is completely encrypted. They would not have access to send information from anybody's accounts. So I'm trying to parallel this back to our world, but I mean this is frightening, because how do you ever put stock in anything that's tweeted by anybody ever again?
Yeah, that's a big question. Now, Greg, are you verified on Twitter?
I am not. No,
well, none of us are either. So one of the interesting things that came out of this was kind of the the uprising of the unchecked, as they were calling it. Hunter, I'm curious on your end. Do you think that the privilege of being verified on Twitter all of a sudden has maybe a very different meaning to it now that you're a target?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. One thing that I saw that came out of that part was that Dave Portnoy, of all people that we were just talking about, he's unchecked on Twitter, and so he of course used that as like the ultimate ploy to reach millions and millions of people by not getting targeted because he doesn't have a blue check mark, which is the most Dave Portnoy thing I think I've ever heard in my life. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of cool. There was a few hours there where it was a bunch of normal people not trying to stir controversy, push their own product. They're just being humans for a second.
You mean we didn't have a New York Times journalist versus VC spat going on that was taking up all of our Twitter feeds?
Battle of the billionaires.
Yeah,
we got a break from that for a
it's
second.
interesting what happens when all of a sudden the loudest voice in the room can't talk anymore. And I think that this event is going to be, huge. I think the fallout from this is far-reaching on the security side, on the company culture side. How do you prevent, someone from being flipped? That's not like an ideal, way to run your company, where you're living in potential fear that someone could all of a sudden just destroy your entire company's goodwill in one fell swoop. So I think the fallout here is very big. And then just like, Hunter said, the battle of the billionaires kind of concept all of a sudden goes away a little bit. Like you all of a sudden have an experience that was kind of beautiful for a moment, where we all got to experience Twitter as normies. And as Twitter starts to talk about doing like a subscription version of their service, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
Yep. What do we got next?
So, oh man, this is so small. Can I it's way too tiny. You're not going to be able to read this on the stream, but Zoom announced a hardware division is the gist of this. And actually we were just talking before we even got on this, this call, just about some potential hardware opportunities that are popping up, but, it's a very expensive unit. It's a 27-inch touchscreen, $600 that is exclusively used for Zoom. It's video conferencing, 27-inch touchscreen, 3 built-in cameras, and 8 microphones, with the by far weirdest name, DTN-Me? Hunter, is there like a hidden word here that I'm missing?
Oh, it's detain me. Jailed by the Zoom fatigue.
But yeah, it's being stuck in meetings. They just made a product name out of it. That's a terrible name. I never realized that until I read it out loud. Detain me. That's very Asian sounding, and they're not even an Asian company. That's very weird. I don't know why they would brand it something that's so hard to pronounce and doesn't seem to have any obvious. It's probably like Digital Teleconferencing Electronic Network. Me. I don't know. That's just what I came up with off the bat. But, I think dedicated hardware for meetings is definitely going to become a thing moving forward. Greg, what do you guys do for meetings? Do you just all use built-in webcams on your laptop? I've got like a Sony mirrorless that I use for my Zooms because I'm doing them so much. What kind of hardware are you using?
Our internal meetings are pretty much all over Hangouts. We're just using our regular hardware, regular computers and hardware.
Oh, we lost you there for a second, Greg.
Notice that I dropped for a minute.
Oh.
And then my external communications are pretty much all over Zoom.
Interesting. So you use Hangouts internally, Zoom externally. That's pretty similar. We use Yak internally. We rarely ever do a Zoom call internally. I mean, I can't think of the last one that I've done personally. But I do think it's interesting that Zoom is obviously getting into the hardware game. It's a new stream of revenue for them, but hardware is hard. And you'd think that they're crushing it right now on software, and that all of their efforts and time and money would be spent, I don't know, server capacity and, well, obviously security issues that we've seen and we've talked about in the past on here. So I don't know that I'm going to buy a dedicated tablet that does nothing but one piece of software, but I guess Facebook portals exist in the world. Jordan, would you buy a 27-inch touchscreen called Detain Me?
Absolutely not. Pretty hard no for me on this one. I already have a nice camera. I got the mic. I don't need all this other stuff. I don't understand. It says it's got 8 microphones. What is it? When you hear me swallow or
So what's interesting here is 3 cameras, 8 microphones, to me, that says it's for a conference room, meaning it needs to look at multiple people at once and hear multiple people at once. What world does Zoom live in where they think people are in conference rooms right now?
Actually, what if it's just like, it's just this massive device that's like the length of your desk, that where you can just like switch camera angles, like while you're on, almost like you're on like a Twitch stream.
Professional stream.
There's like a side profiler shot in front of you, above you. Yeah. Who knows?
I don't know.
If it's for a conference room, that's 27 inches is not big enough for a conference
That's
room.
true.
So I'm assuming, but the amount of, unless they're thinking that they're going to go like an Alexa route, like Amazon Alexas have like quite a few microphones in them. Unless they're going that route, where
like an array,
have like a hey Zoom, start a call with Jordan, right? I don't know, but it seems a little overkill to me, and definitely not something that anybody would be using in the next 6 months.
Yeah, it seems like a weird thing to launch right now, but maybe it was in development for a really long time, and they had the mindset of like, you got to ship. But it'll be interesting to see how a Zoom hardware division shakes out, considering how reliant on software they are, and where I think they obviously need to be putting their engineering efforts, but you never know. All right, so this next one's from, as our lovely investor Pat likes to say, one of my favorite people, Jason Fried. So we say people are plenty productive. It's systems that aren't. It's the process, the methods, the overbearing oversight, the absence of trust, the incessant checking in, the lack of contiguous time, and the red tape that bogs things down, not the people doing the work themselves. And I could not agree with this more. I think we see this time and time again at different companies, clients that we've worked with over the years at our agency. It is always comes down to process. And I'll pull out the important thing here that I think is, the key is absence of trust. I think trust pulls in all of these other things. If you have good trust in your employees, you don't need incessant checking in, lack of contiguous time, the oversight. Like, trust is the thing that kind of boils down to that. Greg, what are your thoughts on this quote, and how do you guys think about this at your company?
So this is right up our alley, because the lack of contiguous time is really the byproduct of too much information, and notifications and disruptions. And now, I'm not sure that I buy 100% that it's the absence of trust, or the incessant checking in. I think that the disruptions that happen to a knowledge worker, so to speak, are because of the free flow of information. Now, I could send disrupt your Slack, it's going to disrupt kind of your consciousness, regardless of whether or not I'm demanding an answer right now. So to me, it's really about the fact that I can't concentrate on something for more than, the numbers are, 3 to 10 minutes before I'm interrupted, whether it's intentional or not. And that's that's really the biggest problem that we have.
Yeah, I think actually I think it's the next one that we already had. Yeah, this next quote says, unpopular opinion, remote work is mostly bullshit. Way more gets done when you're all in the same office. And I think these two tweets are very much tied together, because I think that the interruptions, I think it's perception, right? Like, you may think that more stuff is getting done when you're in the office because it may be a more collaborative setting, but you're actually getting interrupted so much that you're not able to have that contiguous time, which is where real productivity takes place. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, right on. Absolutely. And I think that the access, what we suffer from not being in the office is kind of immediate access to other people, but that's kind of selfish. We don't really pay attention to how much we're disrupting their workflow. But the ability to close your door and just concentrate on getting something done, that's much easier remotely.
Yeah, absolutely. Hunter, you were I think the only one of us three, at least, that has been in an office on a daily basis. What's your perspective on this?
It really, honestly, depends on the team. I was on a team that had the reputation, not me, but my team had the reputation of taking the most coffee breaks out of anybody. So I think it just really depends on the field and what the tasks are at hand. And what's really interesting is like you look at this obviously this person's biased, right? Like they obviously are not working remote, or maybe they just haven't had a good remote experience. So one of the recent quotes that I heard about this sort of thing, it's kind of like fish, right? A lot of people don't like fish until they go to a really expensive restaurant and then they try like how it's properly done, and then they say, okay, I love fish. So that's what I think about remote work is a lot of people hate it. And a lot of times it's not really remote work. It's just how it's presented and prepared for the person and for the company, and not necessarily anything else. So that's really my opinion on it, is like, maybe he's right. Maybe he or she, I can't really tell if this is a woman or a man, but maybe they're right. Maybe their experiences, it was horrible. Maybe they tried it 10 years ago when the tools weren't there. But I just think as of right now, it's just not really a thing anymore.
So Jordan, what would you say to this person? Like, how would you even convince them?
I mean, I think it goes back to Jason's tweet. I think you have to look internally, kind of like at your processes and what you have going on, like as of present day. Because, I mean, I'm sure us three have gotten this a lot. Is like talking to people. They're like, yeah, we went remote, but like we still tried to use like the same principles as in office. And everybody who's doing remote super well just knows like that straight up won't work. So to that person, I would say, hey, let's try to change A, B, and C. And then after, 2 weeks, a month, tell me what you think of like what remote work is or your thoughts on it.
I mean, I guess I would flip it on its head, though, and say they're not saying remote work is bad. They're saying in-office work is that much better, right? So, and I can't get my brain around that because I couldn't work in that setting. I am an inherently distracted human being.
I just want to point out for a second, though, since when did this become contrarian? I mean, we've been shouting from the rooftops for years that in office isn't as good as remote work, and we were the ones that were crazy. Now this person's saying, "Oh, unpopular opinion. Everybody should basically be able to get more work done." It's like,
yeah, that is kind of funny.
Yeah, you're right. It is interesting that that's the unpopular opinion in this scenario. Hey, we're winning. Remote work is a revolution. That's awesome.
Yep. Jeff's tweet.
Yeah, you want to read this one?
Yeah, sure. So this tweet says, first-time founders are obsessed with product. Second-time founders are obsessed with distribution. Is just distribution more important than product? Let's debate. So Justin, thoughts? Because I know you are obviously a huge product person. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I would go back to what I've always said and what I think is my biggest learning or just reaffirmed learning from doing Yak is that building an audience before you build your product is insanely important. Greg, you, in your story, this is a first-time founder for you because you came straight from your old corporate job to this, right?
Yeah, I had stops in the corporate world, but yes, this is definitely my first founder experience.
So right now, what is your priority, product or growth?
Well, product is still our priority. We're almost to the point when we're, let's say, a couple of weeks from going full live market. We've done a soft launch, and we've iterated really over the last couple of years. So our product, it's been a really tough thing to deliver. Synthesizing and presenting all your information, in a simplified and prioritized way. So I'm a little bit biased towards product because getting eyeballs has never been our problem. If your value is enough, people will check you out. I think sustained growth, that's going to be, that's where the execution and the challenge will be.
And retention,
to me, that's a product issue.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think my actual initial take on this is that it's not obsessed with product, obsessed with distribution. I would dare say that a second-time founder had his first try at a product already and therefore has a better chance of shortening the amount of time needed to focus on product because that CEO, that founder, or whatever, has learned so much the first time that now they're allowed and they're able to have a little bit more focus on distribution.
I totally back that up.
If I can throw one thing out there, I think this tweet will depend upon how successful the first.
Well, yes, I think that's probably a key too.
Yeah, look who's making the tweet too, right? Like
Sure.
out of all people, they can basically, that whole team there can basically just put out whatever they want. And it's going to be successful. They already have. I think it also has to do with the network and the audience that they built up, like you were saying, Justin. Like the first one is sort of the vehicle to get your foot in the door, do podcasts, get your audience built up. Your second and third one, it's all about the distribution.
Yeah, absolutely agree. All right, I think that, do we have one more? Nope, that's actually the end. That was it. It was a really short slideshow there. Here, let's go back to this. So, Greg, is there anything that the audience should be thinking about, watching for? Any new releases? Should they just try the product out today? You know, what can we leave a lasting effect on our audience with?
Yeah, so thanks for that opportunity. We have early access right. It's June 1st, and found some really critical tweaks and improvements that we can bring to the market rather quickly, and bring to the product. So I would say that we anticipate going fully just come to our website and sign up and use it in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We mentioned Sarah at the beginning. She'd like it to be a little bit sooner, but certainly if come to the website, I am the address that gets all the intercom messages, and we've been onboarding users one by one using really over Zoom. And it's been a fantastic experience for us doing things that don't scale. But I guess the parting words that I would just give about they're really fantastic out there, and they're fantastic efforts at really taming the vast mountains of information that we have. We're not looking to upset the apps that you already use. We just want you to be able to use them together, informed and focused, and just get the best out of all worlds. We think we're really close to delivering on that, and excited to have people get the benefit of it.
Awesome. Well, where can people find your website? What's your URL? Where can they follow you guys on Twitter? Give us some links that we can plug.
Sure. So it's loophq.com, LOOPHQ.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter with my regular name. I think my Twitter handle is at GGIN. And pretty open, pretty transparent. And as a first-time founder, just building off your last tweet, or your last slide, as a first-time founder, it really is building a network where, as an outsider, so to speak, and I know people are using that, kind of that label, pretty much to their advantage a lot. But as an outsider to, not a typical founder backstory, it's been, building that network and meeting people, and I'll talk to anybody at any time about what we're doing. And that's what makes it really an exciting journey.
Awesome. Well, dude, we're super pumped to have you. We'll share out your links to our audience after the show. And thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Awesome.